Here is the question I want you to sit with for the next 16 minutes. What if everything that's happening right now, the regulatory back and forth, the White House meetings, the ETF filings, the quiet moves from institutions that never make headlines, what if none of that is crypto news? What if it's something bigger? Rob Cunningham put a model together this week, and when I went through it, I had to stop and read it again because what he's describing isn't a bullish XRP scenario. What he's describing is a coordinated monetary architecture shock. 7 simultaneous catalysts, all converging, all before July 15th. And here's the thing, most of the financial world will not understand what just happened until it's already done. That's what we're going to talk about today. The flywheel, the math, and the dream scenario that very few people are actually connecting the dots on. Stay with me. This one matters. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm not here to hype anything. I don't do price predictions with dates. I don't do moon math. What I do is try to understand the structure of what's actually being built and then share that with a community that I think deserves better than noise. Today, we look at Rob's model, we pressure test it, and we talk about what it would actually mean. Before we get into it, I have to acknowledge something. Bully Stick dropped a community video this week. And I want to talk about it for a second because it actually matters more than people realize. When someone in this community takes time, real time, creative energy, stays up late editing to put something together that celebrates what we're all building toward, that's not a small thing. That's not just content, that's culture. That's people deciding that XRP is worth investing their creativity in, not just their money. And I think the XRP army doesn't always get credit for this. The music, the art, the long threads at 2 a.m. explaining on-demand liquidity to someone who's never heard of it. That's the army. That's what makes this community different. Diamond hands isn't just a phrase. It's a decision you make every single day when the charts look ugly and the mainstream crowd is either mocking you or ignoring you. So big shout out to Bully Stick. Thank you. I see it. The community sees it. All right. Now let me get into what Rob put together because I want to build this out properly. I don't want to just read a list of catalysts. I want to show you why, if even 3 or 4 of these happen simultaneously, the math changes in a way that most people are not ready for. Let me start with the hard truth. Most people looking at XRP right now are asking the wrong question. They're asking, when does it pump? When they should be asking, what does the financial system look like when it needs a neutral bridge at scale? Those are 2 completely different questions. And the answer to the second one is what explains everything else. Here's how Rob's model works. He calls it a flywheel. And once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. It starts with legal clarity, not excitement about legal clarity, not the hope of it. Actual, codified, jurisdiction-specific legal clarity. When a bank's compliance team can write a memo that says XRP is a non-security utility token in the US, the EU, Singapore, and these 5 Asian jurisdictions. That memo unlocks everything downstream. Why? Because right now, the thing stopping institutional scale adoption of XRP is not desire. It is legal exposure. Fund managers, treasury departments, bank risk officers, these people are not afraid of XRP's technology. They are afraid of their board asking them why they put the firm's capital into an asset that might get classified as an unregistered security next year. That fear disappears the moment the Clarity Act lands, not fades, disappears. So step 1 in the flywheel is legal clarity, and then watch what happens next. Once legal clarity hits, reserve recognition becomes possible. The BIS classifying XRP as a Tier 1 asset means banks can hold XRP without needing enormous capital reserves against it. Right now, if a bank wants to hold XRP on their balance sheet, they need to back it almost dollar for dollar. Tier 1 changes that completely. They can hold XRP at scale without the capital penalty. And the IMF classifying XRP as an ESDR, a reserve instrument, puts it in the same conversation as gold, dollars, and special drawing rights. Think about what that actually means, not as a crypto milestone, as a monetary one. Once reserve recognition is in place, ETF access follows. And ETF access is not just about retail investors buying XRP through a brokerage account. It is about XRP entering every pension fund, every sovereign wealth fund, every institution that can only hold SEC regulated products. The demand that unlocks is not marginal, it is structural. And then the flywheel picks up speed. Market infrastructure upgrades come in. That's the DTCC rollout, Canton Network, Ripple Prime, macro tailwinds, geopolitical trade unlocks, the Abraham Accords going live, Iraq, and the dinar situation that honestly I don't fully understand yet. And I'd love to hear from people in the comments who actually do. And then at the end of the flywheel, real economy impact. Rob's point, and I think he's right, is that if these catalysts converge, the market is not repricing XRP as a speculative bet. It is repricing it as infrastructure. And infrastructure gets priced differently, way differently. Let me talk about the math, because this is where a lot of people check out, and it's the exact moment they shouldn't. Swift moves roughly $150 trillion annually. That is not a number I'm making up. That's their own reported figure. Ripple has publicly said they are targeting a meaningful share of that. Brad Garlinghouse has talked about capturing 10 to 15% of Swift flows. And on the treasury management side, he believes around 30% of that $13 trillion market, so roughly $4.2 trillion D, could eventually settle on the XRP ledger. Now, here's the math that most people skip over. XRP has a fixed supply of 100 billion tokens. That number never changes. Of those, approximately 55 to 57 billion are in circulation. And the exchange reserves, amisyoners, the tokens actually available for retail buying, have been at multi-year lows according to on-chain data from CryptoQuant and Glassnode. So you have shrinking liquid supply on one side. And on the other side, you're building toward a world where tens of trillions of dollars in cross-border flows are looking for a neutral bridge asset, not billions, trillions annually. This isn't a prediction. It is a supply and demand problem that has one mathematical resolution. Brad also said something last year that I've been thinking about since. If the XRP ledger starts capturing even a fraction of what Swift handles, and then you add in what the tokenization wave brings, and BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, and Fidelity are all in on tokenized assets, you start talking about tens of trillions moving through XRP rails every year. Various analysts modeling these scenarios using MV equals PQ style frameworks land in a $30 to $100 and beyond range over time. And what's interesting about that language is not the number, it's the phrase over time, because the analysts who use that phrase are not guessing at a date. They are describing a structural requirement. This is not speculation, it is plumbing math. Now let me walk through Rob's 7 catalysts, because I think it's worth going through each one honestly, not cheerleading, just looking at what's realistic and what might need more time. Catalyst 1, the BIS classifies XRP as a Tier 1 asset. This would be enormous. The ripple effect, no pun intended, across every bank balance sheet in the world would be immediate. I think this is directionally likely eventually. In the next 30 days specifically, less certain. But the framework is being built. Catalyst 2, the IMF classifies XRP as an ESDR. If this happens, the conversation around XRP changes overnight in central bank circles, not retail circles, central bank circles. That matters more. Catalyst 3, the Clarity Act passes. I've been covering this almost every day. We're close. My honest read is end of July, maybe early August. There are still things to work out. But the political will is there in a way it has not been before. And once this passes, the legal risk premium on XRP disappears. When that risk premium goes, the price discovery becomes reflexive. Catalyst 4, Iraq revalues the dinar and rejoins the global financial system. I'll be honest, I don't know enough about this one to really dig in. I've heard multiple people bring it up. If you're someone who follows this closely, I genuinely want to hear from you in the comments. What's the timeline? What's actually happening there? Catalyst 5, the Abraham Accords go live. cross-border trade infrastructure between countries that previously had no financial rail between them. XRP as a neutral bridge in that context is not a stretch. It is actually the use case. Catalyst 6. The DTCC rollout begins in earnest. The real question here isn't whether Canton Network will do this. It's whether XRP and the XRP ledger get confirmed as part of the settlement infrastructure. That announcement, if it comes, is bigger than any ETF. Catalyst 7. BlackRock announces an XRP ETF. I want to be straight with you. I don't think this happens in the next 30 days. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, IBIT, does over $1 billion in 24-hour volume. The entire US XRP ETF market is roughly that total right now. BlackRock moves when the volume justifies it. We're not there yet, but we will be. And when they come in, it will not be subtle. Rob's point is not that all 7 happen. His point is that even 3 or 4 hitting simultaneously creates a closed loop. Legal clarity, reserve recognition, ETF access, and market infrastructure all at once? That's not a catalyst. That's a regime change. Here's what I keep coming back to when I think about the skeptics. Remember when people said Ripple was doing crypto wrong? I mean, people said it loud. They said Brad Garlinghouse was too close to regulators, too friendly with traditional finance. They said XRP holders were idiots for believing that working with the system was better than fighting it. Now, fast forward. January 7th, 2025. Trump, Brad Garlinghouse, and Stuart Alderodi at dinner together. Then July 18th, Ripple executives at the White House for the Genius Act signing ceremony. Last month, Ripple opened another office in Washington, D.C. Not for show, to be closer to the people writing the rules. Does that look like a company that guessed wrong? And it's not just the political positioning. Ripple acquired Hidden Road. That is a prime brokerage. That is not a move you make if you're building a niche crypto product. That is a move you make if you are building financial infrastructure for institutions who need a counterparty they trust. Brad said something last year that I think about a lot. He believes that something like 30% of the $13 trillion corporate treasury market could eventually be on the XRP ledger. That's $4.2 trillion. And Ripple Treasury is the product built to chase that. Ask yourself this: does a company that has spent over a decade meeting with central banks, sitting across from the IMF, building relationships with the FSA in Japan, and opening offices in DC to be near regulators, does that company do all of that for a maybe? No, they know something. They have always known something. And right now, for the first time, the regulatory environment is actually catching up to the infrastructure they already built. The people who called Ripple's approach wrong, I'm not going to say told you so, but I will say this: the proof is in the room where Brad Garlinghouse was standing when the Genius Act got signed. Let me paint the actual end state here, because I think a lot of people in the XRP community are focused on price as the destination when really it's just a byproduct of what's being built. The dream scenario, and I mean the real one, not the 30-day version, is XRP as the invisible settlement layer. Think about how the internet works. You don't see TCP/IP, you just open your browser. The protocol is invisible. You experience the result. That's what XRP is being built toward: a world where a business in Cairo sends a payment to a supplier in Tokyo. The sender sees Egyptian pounds leave their account. The recipient sees Japanese yen arrive, settled in seconds. And underneath that transaction, XRP did the work. No one talked about XRP. No one needed to. That's not a crypto use case. That's what Swift does today, just slower, more expensive, and with trillions locked up in Nostro and Vostro accounts at banks around the world. Right now, $27 trillion sits idle in those accounts just so banks can make payments between each other. That money earns nothing. It just sits there as friction capital. XRP eliminates that friction. Add to that the tokenization wave. Over $100 trillion in global securities, bonds, equities, ETFs is moving toward tokenization. And when those assets tokenize, they need a liquidity layer between them, a neutral bridge that isn't someone else's stablecoin or someone else's sovereign currency. That's the architecture being built. Price will follow function. It always does. I know it's been a weird few weeks for some of you. Charts are not always pretty. The news cycle is loud and sometimes contradictory. And it can feel like every week there's a new catalyst that doesn't quite land the way you thought it would. I hear that. I really do. But here's what I want to say directly to the people who have been holding through all of it. Being early is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. The trade only works for the people who stay in their seat long enough to see the architecture complete. The institutions are not panicking. They're signing deals. Ripple is not cutting offices. They're opening them. The regulatory bodies are not backing away. They're writing frameworks. The signal has not changed. The noise has just gotten louder, and noise is not signal. Don't confuse the two. Here's where I'll leave you. Rob's model is a dream, a hypothetical. He would be the first to tell you that. Not all 7 catalysts hit in 30 days, probably not even 3. But here's what's not hypothetical. The architecture exists. The relationships exist. The legal framework is being written right now, today. And the institutions that are going to use this have spent years making sure they're standing at the door when it opens. The question Rob is really asking isn't, will XRP hit $100? The question is, when the world's financial plumbing gets rebuilt, are you inside the wall or are you watching from outside? You already know which one you are. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think of Rob's model. I want to hear from you. Until next time, stay patient, stay rational, and stay positioned. Let's go.